Let's take a look at the My Interface. So the first thing I want to point out are the menus at the top. Notice how they change depending on what menu set I have. So the idea is that if you're animating, to be in the animation menu set, and you'll have everything you need. Or if you're modeling, you can be in the modeling menu set and have everything you need. So in other words, if I say go to mesh display and you don't see it, it's probably because you're in the wrong menu set. So that is what you should look at first to make sure that you have everything correct here. This is the shelf, and you can see that there's different tabs here on different things. This is kind of a visual representation of what you're seeing up here. And these icons, we can create custom shelves and things like that. We'll get more into that throughout our lessons. This is the outliner. This is everything in your scene. This is your viewport. This is where most of our, obviously, creation will take place. And right now we're looking at the single perspective view. If I want to switch that, I can go over here. And if I click on this icon, this will give me the 4 different views. And if I go back to this one, it'll give me the single perspective view. But if I click on this one here, now if I tap the spacebar, it'll bring whatever view I tap the spacebar on full screen. This is the top view, the perspective view. Notice that if I hold down the spacebar, I get the hotbox menu. This is the kind of another way to look at the menu, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Over on the side here, this is our channel box. If you don't see that up here, this is the attribute editor, and this is the channel box. So to see that, I'd have to create something. So I could go up here to create, Polygon Primitives, and then I could choose any of the primitives. Primitives are basically the simplest starting point. So if I choose something like a cube, it might ask me to drag on the grid and then drag up like that, okay? I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to go like this, create Polygon Primitives. I want to make sure that interactive creation is turned off. Now if I say to create a cube, create Polygon Primitives cube, now I can see that a cube just appears at the center of the screen. Okay, if I want to move, rotate, or scale that, I would have to use these buttons over here, the move, rotate, or scale. The move, the shortcut is W, and if I hover over this, I can see that W is the shortcut. If I hover over this, I can see E is the rotate shortcut, and if I hover over scale, I can see R. That might sound kind of weird if you're new to this, but if you look on the keyboard, W, E, and R are right next to each other. So if I press W, it'll get the move, E will get the rotate, and R will get the scale. So if I press W, and if I click on one of the blue, if I click on one of the arrows, I can move it in that direction. You'll notice that when I'm moving this, I can see it also updating in my what are called orthographic views. Okay, I could also rotate. So if I press E and if I grab a line, I can rotate it. I can press Ctrl Z to get it back. You'll notice that when I'm rotating, I can see the values update in my channel box. And if I wanted to be this, if I wanted to rotate this a particular, like let's say 90 degrees, okay, I could do that. Now it's going to be tough to tell. Maybe I'll go 45 degrees. And then we can see that it is at a 45-degree angle. I'm just going to zero that back out. And then I could also select this cube and scale it. One thing that I should mention, that if you can't select the cube, okay, there could be several reasons why. The first reason is that you're in the wrong mode. So if I right click and hold over the shape, and if I go to, like, let's say edge, I can see how the cube turns blue, or I should say the outline of the cube turns blue. That means that it's in what's called component mode, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I want to be in what's called object mode. So I'm going to right click and go to object mode, and now I'm able to use my move, rotate, and scale. The other thing that I want to point out is that when you create Polygon cube, be aware that there's other types of cubes. I can go to NURBS primitive. There's a cube here. Volume primitive. There's a cube here. And they're all going to be slightly different. What we're going to be focusing on primarily are polygon primitives. And I just wanted to make you aware that this is where you want to grab your shapes from. And notice that they're orange. The icon is orange. If I go to the NURBS primitive, notice how the icon is blue. Okay, so since we're sticking with polygon for this, all of that is orange. What I want you to notice is that on our shelf, notice how these icons are blue. That's what we don't want. If I click on the polygon, these are orange. These are what we do want. Okay, so if I say to go to create a cube here, I want you to create a cube exactly as I'm finding it. I don't want you to think, oh, this looks like a cube, I'm going to click on that, because that would be the wrong type of cube and you would get frustrated. Okay, so you have to be able to watch exactly where I'm clicking and follow that. I think it's going to make it so much easier for you to kind of follow along throughout the whole process. Okay, a few other things as far as the interface is concerned. We have what's called the channel box here, and we started to see that with the value inputs here. But I also have the attribute editor, and that's this one. You can see there's several icons at the top here. And on the middle icon, this is what's called the attribute editor. And I can toggle between that. If I go Control A will toggle between the channel box and the attribute editor. Another way that I can get to the channel box and the attribute editor is I can click on the attribute editor button on the side or the channel box button on the side. Notice that there's other icons up here. I'll be covering those later. Same with these tabs on the side here. I'll be covering those later as well. But right now, I just want you to be aware of that you can get to the attribute editor and the channel box. Down at the bottom here, these are animation controls. So when we start to animate things, that's where we'll see our timeline and the play controls and everything like that. And also, if you don't see the timeline, up here, notice where it says workspace. I want to make sure that that's set to Maya Classic. That's what I'm looking at now. But realize that you could set this to modeling standard. Now, if you're in the modeling standard, there's no reason that you'd be animating. So it's giving you just the menus and windows that you need. Or I could go to UV editing, okay? And this is another window that has some special windows that we need. But it's just going to be giving us only what we need. So I'm going to go back to Maya Classic. And one other thing, if you don't see the outliner, okay, I can see that it can hide right here, and I can click on that. The other place that I could find the outliner is under Window, Outliner, right there. And if I click it there, it'll pop open. Okay, so that's a brief overview of the interface. In the next one, I'll talk about navigation and kind of moving around our scene.